If everybody says you're on the right track when you're starting out, you're probably on the wrong track. Because if everybody agrees with you, you're doing something that everybody else is doing, and it's not going to have much of an impact. You have to be one of the crazies to really make a difference.
Damion Lupo built over 70 companies in the span of 30 years. He had a significant loss of over $20 million at the age of 30 and rebuilt from zero to $100 million. Now, he is helping entrepreneurs to chart perfect retirement plans.
As an entrepreneur, you almost can't help yourself. You see problems everywhere. You see opportunities everywhere. More than 70 companies that have started have all been problems in the market that I attempted to solve.
Having a loss of over $20 million to go back up takes way long.
If you're holding on to something from the past, you're always going to be in that space. Whatever you're doing is not going to work. So the process was embracing the thing that had happened.
What are the most common traits that made companies successful?
The first 15% you have to get right to have an 85% likelihood of success.
A lot of young entrepreneurs having this idea of instant gratification. How somebody can have patience of it long term?
You got to be willing to say, okay, what's real? And what's real is if you want to be financially free, there is a process. One of the things you got to do is
Please welcome Damion Lupo. Hey Damion, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Great to be here, RJ. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I truly appreciate it. I would love to start the conversation with your journey of being a kidpreneur to becoming an entrepreneur. Like how was that journey look like for you in your younger age when, you sort of got interested with the business stuff? Because like we once in a while, like we as a kid, sometimes we were selling like toffees, having lemonade stands. That's how we actually start stuff at first. And then later on we get into like real game of business. So how was it like for you at first?
The beginning was really just me being irritated, and it was being irritated at my parents telling me that we were poor, broke, had no money, and they couldn't buy video games. And I just don't like being told no. I'm not really a good conformist, and some of my stories I'll share, I'm sure are good examples of that. But when they said that, I said I don't really like that answer. So then I was 11, and I decided I was going to do something about it. So I opened the newspaper when people used to have newspapers. I was a delivery boy making a few dollars there, but I also saw that people were selling video games, and I thought, well, I could probably buy a bunch of these and then sell them and then play them and maybe break even, but ultimately it ended up being actually a way to play games, but to make some money. So it started because there was a problem. The problem in that case was just my parents told me no, and I didn't think that was a good answer. So that's how it began at 11 and continued to evolve for over the years. I kept seeing problems. Most of the problems after that were other people's problems, a missing point in the market, something where people were struggling. And I thought I can come up with a solution. As an entrepreneur, you almost can't help yourself. You see problems everywhere. You see opportunities everywhere. You don't just bitch and complain about things. You say, ooh, there's a business opportunity. In every direction. So that's what's happened over the last 30 years, and the 70 companies, more than 70 companies that I've started have all really been problems in the market that I decided to go solve, or at least attempted to solve. Not all of them worked. A lot of them I just learned a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing. We're definitely going to talk about that too. But I'm really curious to know your thoughts around the fact of, as you mentioned, is like most of the entrepreneurs have this sort of like a lens of figuring out the problems in the marketplace or the problems that people face, and they just move towards solving it, and as a byproduct they get paid, right? But what happens like in a lot of cases when people start out in the journey and they're not like they were not into entrepreneurship at all, even from their young age or so, they actually forget the very basic, which is like, who is your dream customer and what is the problem you're trying to solve? So I would love to ask from you, like, why you think so people sometimes forget that basic lens, which is really important for them to go back to the basic and think about who is the customer, what's the problem they're solving.
Well, here's a good example. I've read all of Grant Cardone's books, and I love Grant Cardone. A lot of good information. But one of the things he says that is the problem, and it's addressing your question, is this idea. He'll walk into a room, and his question is, "Who's got my money?" Like he's thinking about people's money in their wallets and how he's going to get it. That's how I was in the 2000s. I was trying to figure out how I was going to get the money. That's the wrong philosophy. The actual successful, fulfilled entrepreneur that really makes a dent in the universe is the one that's looking around trying to figure out how they're going to serve people and scale it, how they're going to serve a lot more people with something, not how they're going to get the money. How you're going to get the money is really, it's more of a tactic, but people think of it as a life philosophy. The money will follow you as a side effect of you delivering value that's more valuable than the dollars that are in somebody's wallet. If you've got something they want that's worth more than those dollars, they're going to trade you. And what most people are trying to do is figure out how to trick somebody or sell them or get the money. And you don't have to worry about that. You ask for the money, but you do it after you've already given somebody a compelling reason and a compelling solution to a problem they have. That's the missing thing for entrepreneurs and a lot of businesses. They say, look, I've got a lemonade stand, but there's 15 lemonade stands on the block and yours isn't any different. So what's your tip? What's your great value proposition? Who's your target? And do they really have a problem? Probably not. You're just blending in. It's called a red ocean. So you got to find a place where blue oceans exist, where you can actually stand out, be something important to people, where they're willing to trade their dollars or their money for your thing. And that's where people they go right into the business instead of asking those questions. What is my ideal person, and am I actually solving a problem that they have, or am I just trying to force something down their throat?
Yeah, that's really true. And I would love to have a follow up question around that is how people, as we're discussing about, like, people not having the idea of the basic question they should be asking them all the time, like, hey, who is their dream customer and what is the problem they're trying to solve. Since you addressed like a red ocean, and there's other other knowledges like red ocean and blue ocean, how people should have the ability to actually like think about that could be a blue ocean when they are like always get attracted to a red just because they feel like this place is scarce for them to go and start their business. Like, how you actually think about that?
Well, here's the way you find a blue ocean. You find something that is you find a big problem, and then you become the best in the world at whatever your solution is. The reason that most people are in red oceans is because they're fighting in an average space, being average. They don't stand out. They don't go above and beyond. They're trying to figure out how they can get more by doing less, and that's the wrong formula. It's actually not very hard if there's a lot of work involved, but if you're constantly thinking, how am I going to be the best and stand out? It's really, you differentiate yourself, and you just have to keep communicating that to people. And you can be the best in the world, but if nobody knows that, and look, you can't just tell somebody, you actually have to prove it. So a lot of times people they'll be really great, but then they don't want to actually prove it. They show up and they have an arrogance. And unless you're Michael Jordan and you've already proven that you're the best in the world, or whatever it is that you're great at and everybody knows, if they don't know, I mean, I've started businesses where I was creating something that was brand new, nobody'd heard of. And I had to go out there and basically say, look, I am willing to bet on that I am the best, and I'll prove it. And you have no downside. It's this irresistible offer that you make people, and you go, here's your problem, and I'm the solution, and please give me a try. And if you don't like it, you don't pay for it. Most people get too weirded out about that, in terms of they don't want to offer that. They think, oh no, people are going to take from me, and then they end up with no business because people are skeptical. But when you're building something, you've got to build that brand. You've got to build that image and the marketplace knowledge of what you're all about, what your business is all about. Until you do that, you can't demand things. I mean, nobody wants to. Most people are more skeptical of everything because there's so many. There's so many scams. There's so many people just trying to take money. And if you're willing to stand by whatever it is you're doing or delivering, then you really do differentiate yourself. And we all know businesses that do that, and we love working with them. And we generally don't say, okay, give me a better price. We're so happy with the experience. Most people are fighting in a red ocean based on commoditized services or products. And you know what?
Yes.
They're at the bottom.
Yeah. uh, I love it. I remember like Russell Brunson actually said that I've not seen somebody skeptical and making so much money. And it was so on point, because it's like it's being skeptic around everything is like then you're not going to take action on anything at all. Which is just definitely the point that you actually said. I would love to ask from you, like, you know going back and having a loss of over $20 million, it's like, by saying it might, or like the way that you are in your journey right now, it for people to listen, it, okay, cool, had a downfall. But at the point when it happens, the progression of like to go back up takes way long, because of that certain situation when you're in. How you felt about like being in that moment, and like how you actually cope up and got this like extreme upset then?
Well, here's the thing, that when I described the experience in 2008, a lot of people had pretty bad experiences. In 2008, I lost $25 million, and I only had a $20 million portfolio. So that means I was $5 million upside down. And that sounds terrible. And that sounds like a lot. And people say, well, I've lost 20,000 or 50 or 100. If it's everything you've got, it's everything you've got. It's still the same experience. But the great thing is when you are constantly going and trying things and they don't work, you start to realize that nothing's going to kill you. It's just going to make you better, stronger, faster, and it's going to grow you.
Yeah.
Now, when you're homeless, and I'm saying I was homeless for a period of time, and when you lose everything, it's not this incredibly fun experience in the middle of it. But when you trust that it's a process, it takes some time to go through it. It also, if you can get the lessons and move beyond it, it doesn't necessarily take as long. So I'll give you an example. It took about 10 years to get to that point. I was a multimillionaire, and then for about 5 years, I was just trying to figure out which direction was up. I was licking my wounds. I was hiding from the world. I didn't really want to go out there and get hurt again because it's pretty painful losing all that money and having a lot of people mad at you. And so on the other side of that 5 years, one of the things I did was I talked to people that were older, wiser, grayer, balder, and I said, "What I need some help here. I don't know what the right path is, how to think about this." And one of the mentors said to me, "Look, it's not going to matter that this 5 million. There's an experience with one of my partners where I literally it was about $5 million that was stolen from me." So I said, I really, this would have solved my problem if he didn't steal this money from me during this collapse. And the mentor said, it doesn't matter if you can stay focused on serving other people, that 5 million won't matter. And that made me crazy because I thought it does matter, but I'm gonna let go of this and trust you and move forward. And it took a while. It took 15 years from that loss, but the 5 million doesn't matter anymore. It became insignificant. And that's going to sound crazy, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you're holding on to something from the past and you're not learning from it and moving on, you're always going to be in that space. You're always going to be mad. You're going to be stuck in the loss. You're never going to grow. You're never going to make any money. And your business, whatever you're doing, is not going to work. So the process was embracing the thing that had happened and asking, okay, what was this? Why was this done? Why did this happen for me? Not why did this happen to me? It was a great gift going through it. And then on the other side of it, I found out, I realized the truth. And the truth was I'm here on earth to serve other people, not to serve me and just to make a bunch of money. Once I started focusing on that, and not just one person, but a million people, my mission is to free 1 million people from financial bondage, to break the shackles of what I think is modern day slavery. And once that became the focus, then the money became this incredible side effect that started pouring in after a number of years of really delivering, not saying, hey, fireplace, give me heat, then I'll give you wood. I said, all right, I'm gonna go grow trees, I'm gonna harvest them, I'm gonna bring them in, and then I'm gonna work on setting them on fire. And then this heat came. The heat is analogous to the money. People want the money before they do all the other stuff. And so I finally just dug into it. And the last 10 years have been me building a farm. And now there's all this heat and all this wealth that's been created, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, because there was a trust in the process and falling in love with the process and letting go of this fixation on just making money. That is one of the dumbest things that we've been tricked into doing. And everybody chases it because they think that they should. And if you tell them not to, they say, well, I want to try it anyway. And that's just the wrong philosophy. But I did it. So maybe it's just part of what we have to do. At some point, the truth is you have to get past that and let the money be a side effect instead of the focus.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially one thing that you said, which is like really fascinating about, is like you have to let go of what happened in the past, and you don't have to take it with you, because if you do, it's like then you're not going to think about the present and the plan for the future. It's like that that completely going to stay disconnected just because you're regretful of what happened in the past. So which is like really powerful, especially like how you explained it, and like why we have to let go of it, what happened, take the lessons out of it, and then make sure it does not happen again in the future, right?
Yeah, and there's something that, so here's what I'm suggesting. It's not about forgetting it. It's about forgiving the people, including yourself, because a lot of times we are beating ourselves up. I'm so stupid. I made a mistake. I lost money. This didn't work. And then we don't have any faith or confidence in ourselves going forward. So we just don't do anything else. We miss the opportunity of leveraging the thing that we just did and moving forward. So you don't forget the whole point of the lesson. So you win or you lose, or you learn. You don't win or lose. You win or learn. When you learn, the idea is don't forget the lesson, because then you'll have to do the same mistake and learn the same lesson. That's dumb. Making the same mistake twice is literally stupidity. But making it once and leveraging it, I mean, that's the 70 companies that I started. at least half of those didn't make any money. They were learning opportunities. It was like 45 different PhDs in different parts of business and entrepreneurship and investing. And that's great. Like you embrace that instead of saying it has to be 100% correct. You'll never even start if that's the case, because nothing is 100%. It just doesn't work like that. And you learn that over time, but you got to start somewhere, and you got to be confident in your ability to go through whatever life presents, and then ultimately realize that that is part of the process. You cannot hack that. You can't skip it. You have to go through it.
That is so amazing. Is Especially when you said like you don't win or lose, you win or learn. Wow, that's really cool. Uh, I would love to ask about, like, since you mentioned over 70 companies that you've actually grown from like 0 to 100 million. Like what were, and also as you said, not every company is the same. Not every company grows the way it is. Like, but like, what are some common patterns that made companies successful compared to like some companies that did not went successful? What are the basic, or I would say like the most common traits or fundamentals that are like really crucial that actually led to success?
I wrote a book called Unicornomics to address this about six years ago, and it's the essence of the book. It's the first 15% you have to get right, which you're talking about the fundamentals to have an 85% likelihood of success. Now, keep in mind that on average 9 out of 10 businesses fails within 5 years, and then the 1 out of 10 that works fails within the next 5 years. So it's like 1 in 100 actually is successful over a decade. That's true when they don't have the fundamentals. If you can get the fundamentals, the first 15%, we're talking about a 10 times better effective success rate. And that's true. What are those fundamentals? One of them is you got to have a mission. What is the mission? If it's to make money, I guarantee you're going to lose. Eventually you're going to lose because somebody else is going to have something that's more important, more meaningful. And then they're going to undercut you if it's just about the money. So you got to have a mission, and you got and there's a decision you have to make. Am I building something to serve other people? And then you get the best people in the world to help you and become a part of the team. One of the mistakes I made for many years was always looking at people as an expense. They are, if they're not A+ people, they're absolutely an expense. They'll cost you money. If you have A+ people, they make you money. They create business. They build things. People cheap out because they say, I can't afford it. You know what? You're never going to be able to afford anything if you have that mindset. So this goes back to mindset. And then big time people don't have the right capital structure, meaning they're undercapitalized. When you're constantly freaked out about not having any money, you can't make decisions. Ironically, the other side of that, having too much money, makes you stupid. So if you have a bunch of money because you raised a bunch of money from investors, it's very easy, if you don't have the experience or the right team, to go do a lot of stupid things. You spend all this money on this $1 million website, and you do all these things, and you don't even know what you're selling. You don't even know what you're doing to serve people. So this is where you bring in people that have started and been in companies. They've done the things so that you're not shooting from the hip, just hoping it works out. People that have been around will not squander money. But they'll make calculated risks. They'll place bets on things. They'll spend money. I don't like what Warren Buffett says about this, RJ. He says, rule number 1 in investing is don't lose money. Rule number 2 is see rule number 1. And I look at that and I say, well, how are you going to do anything that's going to test something that's not going to work? How are you going to market and learn? You're not. You're just never going to do anything because you don't want to make a mistake. So I think that's something that you have to really consider. Even though he's brilliant, he's the world's greatest investor, that's not the right philosophy. You have to be willing to do things that aren't going to work so that you can figure out what does work.
Yeah, like you have to test it in order to make sure that if it work or not, and then you make decision based off that.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the key things is you got to be a little bit crazy. If everybody says, yeah, you're on the right track when you're starting out, you're probably on the wrong track. Because if everybody agrees with you, you're doing something that probably everybody else is doing, and it's not really going to do much. You're not going to have much of an impact. You have to be a little bit on the crazy side. Steve Jobs was great about this. He came out and said, look, it's the iPhone. You need this. You didn't even know you needed it because it didn't exist until you brought it into existence. And so you have to be one of the crazies, one of the edge cases to really make a difference. Does anybody think that Elon got permission or everybody was saying, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's build a space company or be an EV company? No way. He just said,
No.
that my mission is to save humanity. And so he's building these things. I mean, that's a hell of a mission. That's a great, most people they think too small. They're like, well, I don't want to think too big because then I'll look stupid. Do you think Elon cares about looking stupid? He doesn't care at all about looking stupid. He cares about dreaming big and then executing on it. And he's obsessed with it. That's the key. you asked about foundational stuff. You got to be obsessed about something. If you're like, well, I'm going to go build a business, I'm going to work 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever that thing is, you're already dead because somebody else, like, I like a lot of these authors and people. Tim Ferriss is fantastic, but a 4 hour work week, yeah, that works until somebody works 20 and then they're working 5 times more than you and they're using all the same hack and tools and they're going to destroy you. So you have to be thinking about these
Yeah.
things. Does that sell books or does that build companies? It doesn't build companies. It sells books. You got to be better and smarter. And I'll tell you a secret sauce. It's called grinding. You got to be willing to grind. I mean, if you're just working during the daylight, you're never going to get there. You're gonna always wonder, well, how come they got further? It's because they were willing to do it at 7, 8, 9 o'clock weekends, and that's part of the process. But people say, I want a balanced life. There's no balanced life. There's harmony and there's seasons. But if you're a farmer, you're not harvesting in March. You're harvesting in the fall. But people say, I want to harvest in March and I want to plant in the fall. And it's like, you got to get these things right. You got to dial in and be in sync with nature. There's certain things you got to do in the beginning and there's certain things you do later. And unfortunately, people are trying to get this, spin all their plates at the same time. And then they wonder why their life's not working. It doesn't work like that. It is seasonal. That's how life works.
Yeah, that is so true. And so for example, like in my case, I started when I was 18 in the online space. I'm 25 right now. I see a lot of young entrepreneurs who also like follows a podcast, who can be kind of like are their early teens or early 20s. And the problem I faced, or like others, was having this idea of like instant sort of like instant gratification. Like they want everything like instantly, right? Success, life, good life, good money, all that, etc. Where your story is like really inspiring, because after that downfall, it was possibly a decade of like learning, patience, implementation, to go back and having this extreme upside, right? For people in our age right now, it's like they want everything like instantly. How somebody can have like these time expansion, or like time horizon, you could say, where they can think about long term and have patience of it long term, to see results for something for 10 years, 15 years, and they can have some short term results, of course, to get them motivated for the long term. But how somebody have the enough growth or patience enough to see themselves for next 10 or 15 years? What do you think about it?
I think the first thing you have to do is stop listening to guys like Ty Lopez that's all over the internet, and the guy tells you and shows you his Lamborghini and all this other bullshit. Like, you got to be willing to say, okay, what's real? And what's real is that if you want to be financially free, if you want to create wealth, I created this ebook that you can download at turnkeyretirement.com, and it's 10 steps to $10 million. And so what this looks like, it's the 10 steps in basically in 10 years to $10 million. There, I don't care if you're 18 or 58, there is a process. Is it 2 years? No, that is ridiculous. It's crazy. And you're going to end up blowing up 1,000 times out of 1,000. But if you give yourself enough time, you don't need 20 or 30 years. But if you want to do it in 10, you got to be smarter. One of the things you got to do is you got to have at least somebody, if not somebody's around you, that will tell you the truth, that's been through it. Now, if you're like, well, I got my neighbor or my mom and my dad or my friends. Hey, if they're not worth $10 million, stop listening to them about money. Because if your goal is to go, you got to model, man. Like, you can't be listening to people that haven't done it. It's like going to a fat doctor and asking the doctor about health. How do I become really healthy? And then the doctor is 100 pounds overweight and has diabetes. Don't ask that doctor. Fire that doctor.
Yeah.
The influences that you have, that you got to find people that have been there and then just model the hell out of it. Be around them. And one of the hacks, if you will, is attaching yourself to people that have already been through it. How do you do that? People say, well, how do I find a mentor? Well, you know what, really easy to do? Go find great people and then hire them. And a lot of people are out there, they get to a point, I'm at this point where I really like helping people, and I've made a lot of money. I would say I'm fairly wealthy. And so I've got options with money. So it's not all about money anymore. And it hasn't been for a long time. It's about building things and building people. And so when I think about supporting people, the reason that I'll charge people for mentoring or these mastermind groups I do, why? Do I need the money? No. Is it going to change my life? No. But if somebody's not paying, they're not paying attention. And so there's a reason that people have to pay for things. If you go, I'm going to go listen to my cousin, or look, somebody says to me, Damion, I want to learn. And then they say, I want all your time. My answer is no. I need to know you're committed, because I don't want to waste my time. My time is the most valuable thing that I cannot buy. I cannot get more of it. If I give it to you and you waste it, I can't get it back. So I want to know that there's a fighting chance you're going to do something with that time. And so you can go buy other people's time and leverage their experience. There's nobody, unless you're incarcerated in prison, that cannot go from wherever you are to $10 million in 10 years. That there is a plan for that. It's a step-by-step plan. And I don't care if you're brand new and you have no experience doing anything. There is a plan for that if that matters. And I can tell you, once you get money out of the equation, and it's something that you've done, not only is it very cool to not have to think about money, but you have this experience where you have a confidence because of the process that you had to go through to get to that point. So you're going to be a completely different human being. That's why I encourage everybody. A million, you can bump into a million. You can literally stumble into $1 million by having a job in a 401k over 20 years. A million doesn't matter. In fact, most houses are ending up being $1 million anymore. Million isn't going to work. You got to be thinking bigger. And the other cool thing, RJ, is that when you're thinking bigger, $10 million, you're going to have to serve a hell of a lot more people, which is way better because we're not
Yeah.
meant to serve less people. We're meant to serve more people. That's why we're here. As human beings, it's meant to serve people, not to have a hedonistic experience where you're consuming things and then scrimping and being in scarcity. It's about abundance and serving the world.
Yeah, that is amazing. I'll post up the link of turnkeyretirement.com in the podcast description, also in the show notes. Also, I actually don't want to take a lot of your time particularly, but I really want to ask you from you right now is like, what is your next plan? I know you're helping people out there setting up their retirement plans and all that extra. I would love for you to expand it a little bit more so that people can be aware of it.
Yeah, so what I started doing about 10 years ago or so was helping people with their IRAs and 401ks, giving them control. Most people have these retirement
Yeah.
accounts, and let's be honest, that's where most people's money is. I don't count your house because you can't eat the equity in your house. And so basically you have retirement accounts. Most people, that's where they're looking to for their future. And the problem is people have 401ks, IRAs, and they're in the stock market and they're just hoping there's going to be more money. Hopium is not a good strategy. What is a great strategy is taking
Yes.
control of it. So the EQRP company that I started a decade ago was built to give people control over their retirement money so they could take their old 401ks, IRAs, and start doing things, investing in businesses, investing in Bitcoin or gold or all the different things out there, real estate. And instead of just being stuck in mutual funds, they had control. And ultimately that's given thousands of people the ability to invest how they want to. And a lot of them have invested in things that are changing the world, like the manufacturing company FrameTech that I helped to co-found a couple of years ago that's worth closing in on $1 billion right now in less than 3 years. How did that happen? It's because we built a community of people that wanted to have a life by design, not by default. They said, I want to be a part of this. And so now we're solving the housing crisis and giving people control of their retirement, giving them a path to where they design their future. They're not going to be wondering if they're going to outlive their money. I mean, those things are incredibly powerful when you bring them together. And it's all based on what I talked about in the beginning, which is a mission. When you have a mission to serve people and not just yourself, in fact, you let yourself be the afterthought. You eat last. You're the last thing that you think about. It's really fascinating when you have thousands of people that you're serving. Everything works itself out. There's more money and there's more abundance and more options than you can imagine. What Zig Ziglar said before he died, he said, you can have anything you want if you help enough other people get what they want. That's what EQRP and FrameTech are all about. They're serving people, solving big problems, putting people in control of their lives, and breaking financial shackles.
Yeah, that's definitely amazing. I'll post up all the links in the description, also in the show notes down below. Well, Damien, first of all, thank you so much for being on the show today. Are there any last thing you want to say before we round the show up?
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I would encourage everybody that the most freedom you'll ever have is when you move past the point of caring what other people think about you. Meaning, if you're thinking about what
Yeah.
they're thinking about, they're probably not thinking about you anyway. They're thinking about something else. And that paralyzes people more than anything else, the judgment that we're concerned about. The reality is you're going to be more judgy of yourself when you look back in regret because you didn't take the steps and the actions. So fail faster, move forward, learn from it. Remember, it's not winning or losing, it's winning or learning.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely like one of the key lessons of the podcast. Again, Damien, thank you so much for being on the show, and we're definitely gonna see you guys in the next episode. Until then, peace out.